Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're exploring a deeply human story that's actually hidden right inside the mechanics of blockchain technology. We're looking at a system designed with one very specific goal in mind: building true economic solidarity in the face of an increasingly uncertain future. The source material we're looking at today presents a really empathetic narrative. It proposes a completely new path forward for ordinary people, especially when traditional structures just seem to be failing us. It frames this whole journey not just as some cold financial experiment, but as a genuine attempt to find a collective safety net in an era that's completely defined by rapid technological change.
To really understand the pitch behind this system, I want you to picture something for a second. Imagine a gleaming, highly automated city. The skyline is beautiful, robots are thriving, and artificial intelligence is generating unprecedented wealth for a very select few. But on the streets below, an ordinary worker is walking home, feeling entirely left behind. As jobs disappear and automation just takes over, the gap between those who actually own the technology and those being replaced by it is widening every single day. That profound sense of isolation and anxiety, well, that's becoming a harsh reality for millions. So the big question is, how do ordinary people survive, let alone thrive, when we simply don't hold the keys to this new technological capital?
Okay, let's dive right into this. The source material actually refers to this exact scenario as the technological paradox. Automation destroys the jobs of the many, while at the same time concentrating immense wealth into the hands of a very select few. And temporary fixes, like chasing lottery tickets or highly speculative financial gambles, they just don't solve this underlying structural crack in our society. To counter this, the sources propose a completely new, democratized wealth transfer system. It's essentially a way for the middle class to theoretically rebuild its own ladder using decentralized technology, rather than relying on those traditional institutions that so many feel have just left them behind.
So, how does that theoretical ladder actually get built? Let's move away from that cold, automated city and step into a warm, cozy neighborhood cafe. According to the system's design, this proposed financial revolution doesn't require massive capital to begin. No, it starts with a micro-action. Specifically, we're talking about the price of a single cup of coffee. That's around $3 to $20, or roughly 28,000 Korean won, which equates to about 10,000 WOORI tokens. The creators basically base their entire philosophy on the idea that real change begins with the simple, accessible act of sharing exactly what you would normally spend on your daily beverage.
All right, here is how that simple act functions under the hood within this specific ecosystem. The exact moment a user makes that small, coffee-sized donation, a totally transparent flow kicks off. Using a blockchain smart contract, specifically one built on the BEP20 network, that donation is instantly divided. The source material describes this beautifully, actually. They paint a picture of light flying directly and automatically into the digital wallets of 10 people in the network above them. And because there's absolutely no central authority or middleman holding the funds or demanding withdrawal approvals, the creators argue this guarantees pure automated solidarity. It's a system designed to appeal directly to people who have grown completely distrustful of traditional finance.
Now, what's really interesting here is how they prevent this journey from just becoming a slow, exhausting grind. They use a very specific strategy, the GNT 7-level compression hybrid strategy. So instead of an endless ladder that takes forever to climb, the system compresses this proposed path to financial freedom into just 7 distinct steps. Levels 1 through 5 use a really rapid 3x multiplier logic just to keep the momentum high. Then levels 6 and 7 shift to a 2x logic, which is intended to solidify a user's position. It is mathematically designed to prevent you from getting bored and to absolutely maximize the theoretical speed at which you move through the entire ecosystem.
But speed isn't everything, right? Fairness is positioned as a completely critical pillar here. In the traditional decentralized finance, or DeFi world, things are typically dominated by what they call whales. These are individuals with massive capital who can effectively just buy their way to the very top of an ecosystem. Well, the GNT system claims to be fundamentally different. It's built entirely around an anti-whale mechanism. Sure, you can use your personal funds to reach level 5, but to reach the absolute top, level 6 and 7, you literally cannot just use your own wallet. The protocol is mathematically coded to require actual group cooperation and team leadership. Deep pockets alone simply won't cut it.
Okay, so this is where the math gets really exciting. Here's how the source material calculates the potential return on all that group cooperation. Just as your initial donation goes up to 10 people, the matrix is designed to fracture downwards. Over time, an entire fractal matrix of 2,046 people can theoretically form beneath you. And because 10% of their upgrades are designed to flow instantly right back into your wallet via that smart contract, the system projects that your single coffee-sized action can ultimately reflect back as a massive 204.6 times return on investment. The core core concept is just beautiful. A small hand extended becomes a massive wave of collective support rushing back to you. Now, you might be wondering, wait, what happens if the coin price shoots up? Doesn't it become way too expensive for the next person to join? Well, the system actually answers this with a mechanism called dynamic scaling. If we break down that jargon, it simply means that if the coin's value doubles on the open market, the system automatically halves the number of coins required to enter the matrix. The entry door is mathematically frozen at the price of a cup of coffee. It creates this permanent safety valve, completely designed to ensure the system never stalls out and that new people can always afford to join the solidarity.
So the actual physics of this ecosystem rely on three main engines working together to fuel growth. First up, we have dynamic scaling, which we just talked about, guaranteeing that constant affordable entry for everyday people. Second is the 7-level compression, which theoretically provides that high-speed progression through the ranks. And third, we have a supply cliff or supply shock. The theory here is super clever. As users upgrade, their coins get locked up in the smart contract. So as more people join and lock up their assets, the available supply basically plummets. And mathematically, that puts immense upward pressure on the value of whatever circulating coins are left.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate financial projection when those three engines combine. The pitch here isn't just about that 200 times return from the system's structural matrix. If the overall mechanics manage to push the actual WOORI coin price up by 15 times on the open market, hitting a target of 5-1, those two multipliers combine. 200 times the structural return, multiplied by a hypothetical 15 times price increase, creates what the founders literally call a 3,000-fold miracle for early participants who held onto their assets through the whole process. That is a staggering projection.
When we look at the graduation asset value simulation, the total accumulated asset value scales massively depending on when a user theoretically finishes their matrix and what the coin price happens to be at that specific time. The source material projects that if you graduate when the coin hits 10-1, the estimated value sits around 1.2 to 1.4 billion KRW, and if it manages to reach 151, it scales up to a truly staggering projection of over 5 billion KRW. It provides a very clear, very vivid visualization of how the creators believe early participation in ecosystem growth will just compound massively over time.
But actually, there is a catch, and it's a very human one. The creators emphasize that this is absolutely not intended to be a solitary journey. The absolute key to unlocking this proposed miracle requires network growth. To claim 100% ownership of your 10-level matrix, the smart contract literally requires you to introduce two companions to the system. And because time is money, inviting more participants theoretically accelerates how fast your matrix fills up. They frame this entirely as a demand for true solidarity. Genuinely helping your team succeed and grow is the literal, hard-coded requirement to graduate at level 7. You simply cannot win alone.
It really all comes back to this core idea of the give and take infinite loop. The emotional heartbeat of this entire system is the idea that your single cup of coffee initially becomes someone else's hope. You are literally lighting up their digital wallet. And in return, the combined economic activity of 2,046 people potentially transforms into a massive collective return for you. This entire narrative is built on bridging that massive gap between cold, algorithmic blockchain technology and the very real, very human desire for empathy and mutual support when times get tough.
We are living in a time where it's just so easy to feel small and powerless against the absolute tide of automation and artificial intelligence. This system presents a genuinely fascinating, if highly experimental, alternative to the traditional financial ladders that seem to be breaking down all around us. It leaves us with a truly compelling question to ponder. In the age of AI, will ordinary people find their salvation by linking arms and creating their own microeconomies, attempting to turn the price of a coffee into collective solidarity? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this leaves you with plenty to think about today.